Welcome to Shared Insights, the podcast from BA Insight. My name is Pete Wright, and I am joined today by a new voice to the show, Tony Malandane, sitting in for Jeff. Tony is one of our original co-founders here at BA Insight and oversees product development. Tony, welcome to Shared Insights.
Thank you for having me.
Jeff and I have spoken a bit about cloud hybrid search on this show in the past, and as an unrepentant search nerd, his words, he has made what I have to say is a solid case. I'm hoping that our listeners by now are of the mind that they need to investigate and exercise their curiosity at a very minimum. Here's what I'm hoping you will share with us today. From the perspective of our listeners who are thinking about any sort of migration and the complexity that comes with it, we have to address this value proposition of that overcoming obstacles, migration obstacles can provide. So I have a couple of points I'm hoping you'll help us address. First, help us understand why cloud hybrid search matters today. And two, can you define some of these key obstacles or gotchas in your view and how you are helping your customers to overcome them?
I can do that for sure.
Excellent. Let's dig in. Why does cloud hybrid search matter to us today?
The cloud hybrid search is very interesting because it gives you a path to migrate to SharePoint Online. If you already have SharePoint on premise and you've deployed already, many forms or site collections and you have lots of content, then looking at SharePoint Online may be attractive to you, but then you have all of that content on premise that you got to figure out what to do with that. Do you want to migrate that? Do you want to leave that on premise? It can become quickly a headache in terms of getting enough information online for your users to find it useful. And the good benefit from the cloud hybrid search is that you can make all of your content on premise searchable from SharePoint Online so that your users can be directly operational online, and they can search all information without even having to worry about whether the content is on premise or online. So that's really is a strong accelerator to go into online.
So the way you talk about it, that cloud hybrid search is a transitional period for us, right? That ultimately the key players want to solve the problems of security and accessibility, so that eventually we're moving to the cloud. Am I stating that right?
I think you have both. You have definitely people moving more to the cloud, but people that would also want to keep an on-premise footprint. Like if you have some sensitive content, you'll probably will want to keep that content on premise, but you may still want to be able to search in from the cloud. And for content that is more general in purpose, then you can have that cloud hosted if you want to, and can get the best of both worlds. So it's definitely an accelerator to help you take advantage of the Office 365 and the cloud. But it doesn't mean you have to fully move to the cloud. You can continue your footprint on premise as well if you want to, and use the hybrid search as a bridge basically between your workload on premise and your workload in the cloud.
So what's the kind of scale that we're talking about that shared hybrid search? I mean, when do we run into limits? Are we talking about an improvement in accessibility here?
Yeah, in terms of limit, there's something to know with the cloud is you can index pretty much right now with the cloud cloud hybrid search. You can index up to 20 or 25 million items, but it's really essentially based on how much footprint you have in the SharePoint Online. So if you have a lot of content that you want to index in SharePoint premise, or from your on-premise world, basically with SharePoint Online, then you have to be aware that there may be a limitation due to licensing with SharePoint. And the easy way to work that out is essentially you have ways to either buy more seats, more storage in SharePoint Online, and if you do either of those, then you will get more. You will gain the ability to index more content with SharePoint Online and make sure all of that content is searchable.
So how does BA Insight work with cloud hybrid search today? What does your work look like?
Our product line is basically working pretty well with the cloud hybrid search. All our connectivity, all of our connectors work with the cloud hybrid search the same way that they would work with SharePoint on premise. So any content that you have on premise today, whether it's a documentum environment or it's a FileNet or LiveLink or whatever you have, basically you can index those and make that content searchable online by combining our connectors and the cloud hybrid search. And on top of that, We also work with other products, other classifiers and previews. They work also with the SharePoint Online and the Cloud Hybrid Search. So you can benefit from the whole technology stack, and whether you are on-premise or online, you can still take advantage of those tools and create a great search experience for your users.
About how long has it taken you to get to the point where you can say that all of your connectivity tools, and everything is working now with Cloud Hybrid Search? This has been a big process, yes?
Yeah, there's definitely some work. We were involved with SharePoint, with Microsoft, basically pretty early on, as soon as they had that project going on for the Cloud Hybrid Search, basically. So we've been working a lot on those. The beauty of the design that we have for the connectivity tool is definitely that our connectors really care about the source systems that you're indexing, but after that, it's a framework that talks to SharePoint or that talks to the Cloud Hybrid Search. So all of our tools were almost ready to be compatible with the Cloud Hybrid Search, and we just had to modify how to talk to the Cloud Hybrid Search as opposed to modifying to talking to SharePoint on-premise, basically.
Okay. All right. So this is all why Cloud Hybrid Search matters to us today. Let's talk about the things that can get in your way, the gotchas or the obstacles.
Yeah, and that is, I think it was an interesting experience for us, because conceptually, the Cloud Hybrid Search is really easy to understand. You have either your search index on premise or you put it in the cloud. If you put it in the cloud, then you don't really have to worry about indexing. You don't have to worry about the size and keeping those servers up and running. The only thing you care about is making sure that you index the right content. But when we actually went and started doing implementations on the Cloud Hybrid Search, then we started seeing those little differences between what you have on premise and what you have in the cloud, and those are interesting and important to look at in terms of will you have a successful implementation. Couple of examples. So you have the extensibility aspect of things, for example, where the extensibility points, the ability to feed SharePoint on-premise or to modify the content that you're indexing with SharePoint on-premise, not all of that is actually transferable to SharePoint Online. Another example with that is the Cloud Hybrid Search is still a fairly young functionality and fairly young feature added to the whole SharePoint stack. And some of the administration points basically can be a little confusing or a little on the side of what you would expect if you're familiar with SharePoint on-premise, basically. So that's the kind of things that you need to pay attention to know what is doable and what is not doable, or where or how to do it, basically.
Well, one of these examples I know is around Active Directory. But can you talk a little bit about some of the security lessons you've learned in working on
Yes.
in this area?
Yeah. This one is, I think, was pretty interesting, especially with SharePoint on-premise in SharePoint 2013. Microsoft was pushing for the claim-based authentications and federated identity providers and that kind of new generation of identity management tools. And it's working pretty well with 2013. Now, when you do Cloud SSA, though, the only kind of information that you can index with the Cloud SSA is information that is secured with AD users and groups, basically. So if you have content that lives into a documentum or a live link, for example, or if you have content that lives into a system that does not rely on AD for security, then you won't be able to push that content with the Cloud SSA because the cloud doesn't support claims. So you cannot secure that content in a way that would return secured results in SharePoint Online. That kind of limitations can be worked around. And actually, we do provide in our product, in our connector product, we do provide the ability to resolve the security problem, even if your systems don't have an AD-based security. But natively, that's the kind of things that you need to look at. The other thing, maybe a variation of that problem, but a more like practical variation of that. If you have multiple SharePoint deployments in your intranet, in your local network, and they are in different domains, or they are in a domain that is not synchronized with your Office 365 tenancy, then you will face the same problem, because those that content may be AD based, but Office 365 does not know about those AD users and groups, and therefore it cannot apply security properly. And what you would expect is what you will get at the end is basically documents that are indexed and seems to be indexed properly and seems to be crawled properly without errors. But when you try to go and search for them, they're actually not available for the users, and they're not available because the users, the security user groups, and so on cannot be resolved. And those documents cannot be returned back in search results.
For our listeners who are just jumping in on this episode, if you want to jump back to episode 13, we have a conversation specifically around search security with BA Insight Solutions architect John Linker. It's another great conversation that dives a little bit more deeply into this subject that you're getting into right now, Tony. Let's talk a little bit about administration. You already mentioned that having to administer hybrid can be more complicated.
Yeah, a couple of examples there. So when you use the Cloud SSA, you will be able to schedule your content sources and your crawls in the Cloud SSA, which is basically in a SharePoint environment on premise. But all the stuff that relates to managed properties and metadata is actually something that you have to do in the cloud. So you cannot just go in the managed metadata, the metadatas and managed properties, and crawl properties that you're used to in your SSA on premise. You actually have to do that in the cloud because they're not synchronized with each other. So that's a bit of the counterintuitive part that I was talking about earlier, where the UI may still be there for the Cloud SSF on premise, but it actually doesn't do anything. It doesn't help you. You have to do that in SharePoint Online. Couple of other examples: index reset or removing items from the index. That kind of functionality is available in SharePoint on premise, but actually up until a recent CU, it was actually misleading because that could actually break the connection between the Cloud SSA and SharePoint Online. Now, if you want to reset the content that you indexed via your Cloud SSA, your hybrid search, there's actually a script that you have to use, a PowerShell script. And if you want to remove items, it's the same thing. There are some PowerShell scripts. So that's the place where what I mentioned earlier is the features being a little young, there's still some gotchas that you have to be aware of. And if you use the wrong tool, you may not get the expected results, or you may actually cause some problems to yourself.
To this point about extensibility, I actually have two questions around third-party services too. So your comment about extensibility, we need to talk about, but the other is about the ecosystem of how well document providers, knowing who the core audience is of BA Insight tools, how well is the ecosystem adopting cloud hybrid search and supporting cloud hybrid search? So can you take on both of those points?
Yeah, I can try that. So in terms of the how well the ecosystem is supporting those, you basically when you look at the technology, you basically have two different approaches. You have the BCS connectivity and you have the protocol and handler connectivities. Those are extension points basically. If you use the protocol handler, or if your ecosystem is what is using protocol handler, then that kind of functionality will continue to operate and should continue to operate. If you look at BCS, then it goes back to the comment I was making earlier with regard to security and how well that the security mapping will work. And if you use BCS and claims, that's where you're going to face some challenges. So with regard to extensibility, I think that's one of the points where you want to be aware. Does your solution basically use functionalities from SharePoint that are still available with the cloud hybrid search, or do you have to adjust that or to work with your partner for that?
It's so much of what you are talking about here. I mean, you made a point just a few seconds ago about the recent CU that actually made a fundamental change in the way some of the administration actually is done inside of hybrid. It feels like we are right on the bleeding edge of the very latest thing that Microsoft is doing for us, and being able to connect with it can be harrowing. What is your sense of the pace of change and the level of update that you are getting from Microsoft and that you are able to respond to in kind?
That I think is where there's an interesting bridge to the cloud. Is the Cloud SSA is closer in terms of development cycles, in terms of capabilities to what you would expect from cloud products and offerings than it is from the traditional on-premise software. So Cloud SSA came through a cumulative update with Microsoft SharePoint 2013, and it's being updated frequently with those cumulative updates as well. So you have a much faster pace for new functionalities being added and new capabilities and issues being resolved through those cumulative updates. So you will see a faster iteration from Microsoft in terms of solving some of those problems I mentioned, improving the capabilities, offering new capabilities or features with the cloud hybrid search, basically through that cumulative update mechanism. As opposed to just having a functionality that you have here in 2013 that also exists in 2016, and then the next major improvement would be with next version of SharePoint on-premise. I think that is not going to happen. What you will get is something that every few months gains more capabilities, gains more maturity, and more functionalities, basically.
How has that affected your release cycle?
It will make it a lot more interesting in terms of being able to keep up with that. It will make us basically take advantage of the functionalities as they get developed and not have to worry about is it SharePoint 2013, 2016, major releases and major changes. It will be a more fluid way also for us to take advantage of those functionalities and make them useful to our customers as well.
This is fantastic. A great conversation, Tony. Thank you so much for your time. Anything that we have missed that you want to make sure you leave our listeners with today?
I think that we covered quite a lot there. There's definitely, as you mentioned earlier, there's definitely some previous podcasts and also a lot of resources that we've published already on our blogs and on our website. So if you're definitely interested with the Cloud SSA, just take a look at what we've published so far, or even drop us an email. We'll be happy to help you with your questions and help you move forward.
I will put links to both of those opportunities around the Cloud SSA on the blog and the contact form, so you can just scroll down in your show notes right there on your mobile device and click right over and take advantage of those resources right now, as long as you are not driving and you are being safe. So thank you very much, Tony Malandane, for your time today. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I hope you will come back.
I hope so too. Thank you very much for having us.
We'll talk to the powers that be and make sure you're on the guest list.
Yeah, you go.
And thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to the show. Don't forget you can subscribe for free in iTunes or Google Play, anywhere the finer podcasts are served. On behalf of Tony Malandane, I'm Pete Wright, and we'll talk to you next time right here on Shared Insights, the podcast from BA Insight.